From being the UK's golden boy to turning into the fallen champ everyone's afraid to talk about. Here's all about the rise and fall of Anthony Joshua. I'll start off with Joshua's historic win over Klitschko, the peak of his career. The fight was billed as a battle between two generations of heavyweight boxing, with the 41-year-old Klitschko representing the old guard and the 27-year-old Joshua as the new kid on the block. And boy, did Joshua prove himself that night. The fight was an absolute classic, with both fighters trading blows and knockdowns. Joshua started strong, knocking Klitschko down in the 5th round, but the Ukrainian legend came back strong and had Joshua in trouble in the 6th. Joshua didn't give up and kept pushing. Then in the 11th round, he unleashed a monster uppercut that knocked Klitschko out cold. The referee stopped the fight, and Joshua had not only retained his IBF heavyweight title, but also added the WBA and IBO belts to his collection. The win over Klitschko was the peak of his career, and at that moment, it seemed like nothing could stop him.
He's a fighter. Whether you know of him, that's down to your own research and how much you invest into researching in the business. But in terms of talent, you can't deny a man. If a man turns up in that ring to fight, he's coming to fight you and take your head off. And that's what he tried to do with Dylan. So, yeah.
But as they say, all good things must come to an end. And for Joshua, that end came in the form of his first professional loss to Andy Ruiz Jr. It was a shock to the boxing world, as Joshua was heavily favored going into the fight. But Ruiz Jr. proved to be a tough opponent. He was just all over Joshua from the start, and you could tell Joshua was having a hard time keeping up. He was getting pushed back and couldn't find his rhythm, and looked exhausted and was breathing hard. All signs pointed to Joshua not being at his best, and Ruiz was taking full advantage of it. And then, in the 7th round, Ruiz landed a big left hook that sent Joshua crashing down. Joshua got back up, but he was wobbly, and Ruiz smelled blood. He came at Joshua with a flurry of punches that sent him down again, and this time Joshua just looked completely out of it. The ref had to step in and wave off the fight. It was a shocker. Joshua was left lying on the mat, staring up at the lights, and you could see the disbelief in his eyes. He had gone from being the king of the heavyweight division to being knocked out by a guy who wasn't even supposed to be there.
And then we had the situation with the war going on, so dates kept on changing. So I said, look, that's fine. Like, the man is going through what he's going through. I respect that. So let him come to the game when he's ready, when he's 100%. And that's where it's led us now to come to the end of the year.
Oh man, it's crazy how fast things can change in the world of boxing. One minute, he's on top of the world, and the next, everyone's acting like they don't know the guy. I mean, this guy was the UK's prodigal son. He had the looks, talent, and charisma to make him a superstar, but then it all started to unravel. In his rematch with Ruiz Jr., Joshua won, but it wasn't exactly a convincing victory. He won by unanimous decision, but he looked tentative and didn't show the killer instinct that made him so dominant early in his career.
I keep on getting asked that question, like, oh, if you lose, are you going to retire? Sometimes I just feel like I'm not going to debate with people, so I just be like, yeah, I'll retire if I lose. I just kind of give them what they want to hear. So I'm not going to debate with people time and time again about the decisions that I can make in my career.
And then, just when people were starting to doubt him, he lost again, this time to Alexander Usyk, a guy who was considered a much smaller fighter than Joshua. Usyk outboxed him and won by unanimous decision, and suddenly Joshua was the disgraced son everyone was avoiding. It seems like he lost his way somewhere along the line. Why though? Maybe the fame and fortune got to his head. Some say that once he became rich and famous, he lost his hunger and drive to keep improving. I mean, think about it. When you come from a humble background and suddenly become a multi-millionaire and a superstar, it's easy to get complacent. You've achieved everything you ever wanted, so why even bother putting in the extra effort to improve your game? And it's not like Joshua hasn't had any opportunities to make adjustments to his game. He's had multiple trainers and has sparred with some of the best fighters in the world, but maybe he got too comfortable with his style of fighting and didn't feel the need to change it up. He needs to keep up with the times, because fighters have changed the game with their speed and unpredictability. Heavyweight boxers are not these big giants who rely solely on their power to knock out their opponents anymore.
We throw punches to hurt the other person. I don't really throw them with intention to just kind of touch and keep on controlling him. I really want to inflict pain and damage on my opponent. And more than likely, if this guy can't weather the storm, he'll get knocked out.
Usyk and Fury have shown that being fast, agile, and unpredictable can be just as effective, if not more so, than just being stiff and relying on a powerful punch. Usyk is able to move around the ring effortlessly, darting in and out of range and landing punches from all angles. Fury, on the other hand, is a master of range and timing. He's able to use his height and reach to keep his opponents at bay. Joshua's more traditional, stiff boxing style, as opposed to these, is one of the reasons why he's struggling to keep up with these new breeds of fighters. And maybe that's why Usyk was just too quick for Joshua. He was moving around the ring like a butterfly, stinging like a bee, and Joshua couldn't catch him. Every time Joshua tried to land a big punch, Usyk was already out of range, dodging like a ninja. Usyk was hitting Joshua from all sorts of angles, like a pinball bouncing around the ring. Joshua just couldn't keep up, and he ended up taking an L. Joshua could have worked on his footwork and agility, or even just add more variety to his punching combinations to keep his opponents guessing. But maybe it isn't just his style that made him fall off. AJ got a pretty late start in boxing compared to guys who've been at it since they were kids. He didn't start boxing until he was 18, which is pretty late when you look at other fighters who've been training as kids. There's no denying that his late start has put him at a disadvantage. See, boxing is a sport that takes years and years of training to really master, and when you start as late as Joshua did, you're already behind the curve. You're playing catch up to guys who've been doing this their whole lives.
There's a bit of like ego, pride that happens in that ring, and it just spills over until the final bell. And that's all it is really. It's all respect, but at the same time it's a fight. It's different. When you're in that square circle, it's a different kind of energy.
And while AJ has certainly made up a lot of ground, there are certain skills and instincts that just can't be developed overnight. And when you factor in the evolution of the heavyweight division with new fighters who are bringing new styles and techniques to the game, it's easy to see why Joshua might be struggling. He's still relying on the same techniques and strategies that worked for him in the past, but the game has moved on. Maybe he'd be better equipped to handle the challenges of the modern heavyweight division if he had started earlier and had more time to develop his skills and instincts. So it's clear that Anthony Joshua has had a rough go of it lately, but that's not the point. The point is, if there's any hope for a comeback, he's now got a whole new team behind him, including coach Derek James, and has been training in Texas. Joshua's style of staying behind the jab and 1-2 might not cut it anymore, so he's been working with Tony Bellew and exploring what training he can add to his skills. AJ has also been open about his struggles with mental health and the impact it has had on his career.
Big fight for me, for sure. Respect my opponent fully. I respect everything that he says he's been through, and we're here to rock and roll. And I respect my supporters as well, so I put in the work. And I respect my coach as well, so I want to make sure I go out there and I get the job done in good fashion.
After his loss to Alexander Usyk in 2021, he spoke about feeling upset and letting people down. He's done a lot of soul-searching and has made a conscious decision to focus on boxing and nothing else. It seems that his heart is still in the game. It's safe to say that Anthony Joshua has had quite the roller coaster ride of a career, and that's all for the rise and fall of Anthony Joshua.